Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on what part of the world you're visiting us. I am here with a great friend and mentor that has taught me a lot about sales. So we're going to be talking about the complex sales process and how can you be able to have a better process, but most importantly, reduce the drama. And we know there's a lot of drama with big buyers. So let's talk a little bit about how to reduce the drama on the buying process. Jeff's a leading edge strategist and value advisor for a lot of companies around the world. He's the president and CEO of Prime Resources Group. He is the author of 3 amazing sales books: Mastering the Complex Sale, How to Compete and Win When the Stakes Are High, The Prime Solution, and Exceptional Selling. Great books. Indeed, I remember, Jeff, I remember you when we started talking. I see your books in every airport. It's crazy. You're in every airport. You're like in every front of every store of books in the airport. I always see your books on the name. That's pretty cool. And by the way,
our audience is constantly at the airport.
Our audience got out there, but that's correct. And just quickly, Jeff has worked with amazing companies like Boston Scientific, Shell, 3M, Microsoft, Georgia Pacific, Raymond James, and has done over 3,500 speeches. Wow. How many times have you been, how many years have you been a speaker, a consultant in sales?
That's been 40.
40 now.
40 now.
So where do you learn the process of selling?
Well, I thought I was good at selling when I decided to work at consulting. And really, when I first started, I did not have a sales process. What I said to my clients is, I'll go out and shadow your top performers and figure out what they're doing and put it into a process and teach it to your other salespeople. So this whole process really evolved by me and my colleagues traveling, watching top sales performers do what they do. And most of them are overly conscious of what they're doing so well. They've just done it so many times. And because it's been painful, trial and error, they've suppressed the pain they've gone through. So, when you ask someone, why did you just ask that question? You'll get an answer like, well, it seemed like a good question, nothing very instructive. So we would just, continue to really debrief that. And, well, what did you do before you did that? Why did you stop doing that? And those types of things. So anyway, the whole
you're an expert on asking questions. You're an expert on asking questions.
That's how we put it together.
All right. So what creates the biggest drama in the sales process, and what have you learned to fix it and to reduce the drama in the process?
I think the drama is from the lack of an organized process.
Okay.
Therefore, I'm a bit confused. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, and I do need to hit my quota, and I do need to take the kids to Disney. Drama.
Right.
And if you think about a doctor with a patient, that drama isn't there because they have a very solid process that they're well versed in. So they're not surprised when they cut open the chest and see a heart pumping in there. That's what they expected. So yeah.
So before I get into the process itself, for what kind of sales process your model works best?
Well, if you think about the sales process is not really about selling, that's an outcome.
Okay.
But the process is about making a decision, assessing a situation, and deciding how to deal with it. So if you think of the role of the sales professional is to guide that customer through that decision. And if we talk B2B, it's a decision regarding the performance of my business, the process I'm in charge of, the department I'm in charge of, and I'm assuming your product, your solution is going to improve that impact, improve that performance. And so you're guiding a decision process. And if there's a problem and if it can be solved, and if there's a net gain in value, profit by solving it, a sale will take place. No drama.
Okay. So, but for you to do that, you have to get way early on the decision process. Usually when you get called by a potential buyer in a B2B sale, in a complex sale, you usually said, hey, we already have everything we want. Who wants to bid for this, right? But they come and they already have the process finished. How can you get in the front of the process? You could do that as you described.
Well, we talk about in our program that and a lot of research has reinforced the customer is maybe 60% through the process by researching things on the internet.
That's correct.
Before they call a salesperson.
Yep.
And so when they call, when you engage, you begin the conversation, but you're going to ask one or two key questions. For example, when your team did the calculations to figure out how much this was costing you, was the number about what you expected?
Yep.
We call that an assumptive question. Now, you typically are going to get a blank stare back, like, well, we don't know how much it's costing us. Well, you've just helped them begin to realize they're not as far along in that decision process as they thought. So we always find the best sales professionals are literally taking their customer backwards in the decision process to go forward with more clarity and less drama.
Wow. But you have to be really good as a sales agent to do that.
Well, you have to be good at understanding the type of business you're selling into.
Yep.
You have to be good at communicating. Yes. So that we talk about having the process and the skill and the discipline.
But if you get a sales agent that they just want to get to the last hour and close the deal, right? They're trying to push the sale to happen instead of having the discipline. So like, no, let me go back and help you rethink your process and what you need to then close it, right? They just want to go in like to the last hour and close. How do you kind of change that mindset on the sales agent?
Well, I suppose like any problem, the first step to recovery is awareness. So, what is their conversion ratio? It's probably running 15-20%. With the best people, it's running 60 to 80%. So if I'm counseling you and I ask, what's your conversion ratio? And you tell me it's 20%, I'm asking, are you comfortable with that? If it could be 60%, would you be comfortable with 20? So they've got to recognize the problem.
Yeah. All right. So you do to your clients when you're selling them the process, what they should do and saying, hey, if you go this way, you're going to purchase something you don't need, or it's going to be too expensive or whatever.
That's the beauty of it. For example, if a client asks, well, that's a pretty high price. What sort of a discount can you give us on your training? And I say, we really don't give discounts. We have what we refer to as pricing integrity. And by the way, if I give you a discount, you shouldn't hire me, because I probably wouldn't help your salespeople stop giving discounts.
That's a great way to handle the objection of the sale. Right. So let me understand, like, what are the three barriers or challenges or complication during a typical long-term sale or a long process?
Yeah, well, the one we just talked about, your customer typically does not have a good decision process. I mean, think about most things businesses buy that are in the high ticket complex arena. Well, when they buy a new, computer system, that's going to last them 2 or 3 years. When they buy a CRM system, that's going to last them 6 years. So how often are they actually buying the type of solution you're selling? It's very infrequent. It may have been never. If they bought it 5 years ago, the team that bought it may not be the same team.
But
and
the
so,
technology change and pricing change and suppliers change.
So they don't have a good process. Now, they definitely have a buying process. They have a routine they go through, but they don't have the specific process for deciding, do they have a problem that your solution solves? How bad is it? Should they do, etc. So the challenge, they don't have a decision process. Now you have this great inefficiency where they're just gathering information, a lot of content of information, and they don't have the context of what are they going to do with that information? How are they going to sort it about? So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is this decision is really not about should they buy something or not. The decision is about should they change something they're doing? Should they change their CRM? Should they change their control system? Should they change the chemistry for their formula? Or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're not deciding to buy something. They're deciding, should we change this? And if they decide to change it, then they're going to buy something. And if you're the one that helped them figure out why change, how bad is it, all those types of things, you have the credibility that you're likely going to be able to lead them to success. And then the third challenge is really they decide to change based on the net value gain for their change. And they typically don't have the ability to measure that value, to quantify how much is it costing not to do what you could bring to them in a solution. So those are really the three key elements that you're wrestling with.
Okay, and now let's go about objections. Imagine you went back, help them design the bid or what they need to buy, and you do all the process right.
Yeah.
We've always said that when they start getting your objections, that's when they know they're close to buy, right?
Yeah.
Now they're really thinking about the close.
Yeah.
So what are the typical objections that you see in the sales process, and how to overcome those typical objections?
So first of all, you're not going to like my first answer, which is our whole process is not about handling objections. It's about eliminating objections. So that when you get to that end, there are no more questions. There are no more objections.
Because you help design what they're going to buy and how they're going to buy it and all that.
Yeah. So you're dealing with what would be an objection one at a time in a very logical sequence of decisions. Now, that being said, nobody's perfect. There always will be. And if you think of an objection as a question that hasn't been answered, like, well, we talked about your price is too high. Well, okay. During our process, we would be figuring out how much is this problem costing, and the customer would be agreeing with that because it's a mutual conversation. So if they, at the end, then say, this price is really high, would there be some sort of a discount? And your response is, well, there's really not a discount available other than quantity. And we've already talked about your quantity doesn't get you there. But I'm wondering, when we worked out this was costing you about $300,000 a year, and you felt that was too much to continue to absorb. And our system is going to run about 82,000 a year without a discount. Are you thinking that return is not adequate for you to make the change? So I'm not solving by giving a discount. I'm essentially going for the no, which is, are you changing your mind that a 3.5 time return is not enough to make the change?
Yep.
Because I'm leaving.
Okay. All right. So, but there's always the intelligent, the one that wants to feel intelligent, and the at 11:59 said, "Okay, but what's my discount? Or can you give me whatever?" Right? They always try to negotiate something at the end.
Yes, absolutely.
And they discuss an objection, asking you for something different. How do you deal with that?
Well, well, I guess the first thing to keep in mind is in a negotiation, and there can be many things besides money in the negotiation. You don't give, if you will, without the customer reducing the requirement. So, can we do this for a lower price? Yes, we can. Which one of the 4 main items would you be able to live without? And so we call it the atmosphere of cooperation. I'm always agreeing.
As long as you agree on removing something else or removing all the costs or whatever.
And that's what an arbitrary discount is. Arbitrary means I give it for no reason.
Yep.
You don't do that. And no one really would expect you to do that.
Okay.
But they'll ask. It's their right to ask for a lower price. By the way, many companies do that. So I'm not surprised, and I don't begrudge you for asking for a discount, but we have a policy of no arbitrary discounts. In 40 years in the business, Prime Resource Group has never given a discount other than volume, frequency, and that's all laid out. And the worst thing you can do to a sales organization is give them a rubber price sheet.
A rubber price sheet.
What is a rubber price sheet?
What is that?
It stretches, it moves. We never know what the price is. So to that sales organization, when the customer says, we need to get a discount on this, the salesperson immediately says, I'll check. And what does that say to the customer? It says discounts are available.
Are normal, yeah.
And man, you're in trouble. Talk about drama.
You lost already.
Yeah,
you're 100% lost.
You have to.
Interesting. I've never thought of that way, but yes.
Yeah, you're
destroying. Let me check or let me ask. Then
you're destroying your sales organization.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good one. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the in the sales process that you go to a team and you're training all the team, right? Yeah. And there's some ones that do it well and some of us don't want to follow the process. So if you have a team of sales agents and you say, this is the way we're going to do it, and Jack Daly, it's a common friend. Jack always said, if there's 40 sales agents, everyone's doing it the best way they think they're doing it. And there are 40 different best ways of selling something. There's just one way. How do you get everyone aligned and really following that?
Well, that's really, first and foremost, it's the process of senior management creating a process. And so if I'm interviewing you for the job, we're going to talk about the process you used at your previous place of employment. And we're going to talk about the process here and differences and similarities. And you're going to agree to use our process, or I'm not going to hire you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the interview.
That's the
It's part
start.
of. Yeah.
That's the starting point. And now that you've agreed, and I or a manager is coaching you in the process, we're doing the steps to the process. And as soon as you vary from that, we're going to have a conversation, because that's not acceptable. And yeah, it's a lot of issues here, but it leads to the drama. Is, as an organization, if you hire experienced people and let them go about selling, because they're on commission, you only have to pay them when they sell something. That's the worst case scenario. And then you have 40 salespeople, 40 different approaches. There's no way you can manage that, scale it, make it efficient. So step number one is, you as a management team set up the process and the approach, and you hire to it. Now, this works for my book, but it would work for a book about other process that you're using.
Okay.
When you interview the person, you have them read the book before they come in. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with in this book? And we'll talk about it. And
so if a company follows your process, they usually send your book for the new interviewers or the new potential sales agents to read them before it comes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, read the book, and when you come in for the interview, let's discuss what you liked, what you don't like, what's similar to what you've been doing, what's made you successful, and what are you seeing that might be different from what's made you successful, that you would like to do something different. And I'll have that conversation. And by the way, maybe we change our process because you've done something really good we haven't heard of that fits into this. That's okay. We can change our process when we want, but we can't have 40 people each doing their own approach.
Okay. Right. So now let's go take a different perspective. Now let's talk about the buyer, right?
Yeah.
Because the buyers have their own tricks on how to win on the buying process and how
buyers
to
go to school much more than salespeople do.
That's correct. That's exactly what I want to go. So now tell me, on the buyer side, what are the typical things, or how they train the buyers to really not screw the seller, but kind of be tough on the seller and change the things and just get a better deal and a better pricing. So an example, a quick story. I had a client that was negotiating like a $3 million deal, and the buyer all the time said, "Hey, you're in front. We really like what you're doing," and just extended in the sales process and got the guy to give him all these free things and all this information and everything, because he was telling him that he was the one. And one day he said, "Oh, by the way, you lost, right? But by the way," he disappeared. This guy called him and said, "What's up? Oh, by the way, you lost." By an hang up phone. And this guy felt offended that the sales guy was really running a really long process and giving all this data and competitive analysis and everything. And then the last day, he just lost the deal.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the buyer, what the tricks the buyers do to the sales.
Well, anything and everything, and what we have a cure for that. It's called the impending event question.
What is that?
All right. So the buyer says, we need to know if your system will be able to process X volume per minute.
Right. Typical, to get you excited.
And so we're going to do a pilot run and something like that, right? And so we got another month or two, and bring in the equipment and training and blah, blah, blah. So all the salesperson needs to say at that point in time is, I certainly hope we'd be able to do that to your satisfaction, and we can set this all up. I'm curious, assuming we bring in the equipment, we run the test, and we successfully prove it runs 32 widgets per second. What would you see as your next step?
So you go on top of or in front of
It's
what
bring
they
the
were
future, bring the
yeah.
future to right now. And if that buyer hesitates, if that buyer has no real answer or says something like, well, then we're going to move on to further, you'll make the short, more
Right.
technical term BS, then you've got to make a decision at that point. They're jerking your chain.
That's correct.
Do you want to go along with it? And we have a key thought in our program, and that is salespeople have rights.
Oh yeah. All right. Yeah, but the sales people usually think they don't have rights, or they're
Right.
at the
That's
mercy
right.
of the buyer. Because, well,
Exactly.
the buyer told me, and the buyer did this, and the buyer changed the term, and the buyer.
Yeah, not my fault.
Not my fault, correctly.
Not my
Yeah.
fault.
So I hear all of that a lot.
The fact that I'm an incompetent wimp
Correct. Yeah.
has nothing to do with what happened here.
Right.
But again, see, if you have a process, then the process recognizes these types of things happen. Buyers do these things, and you have a step, a skill in your process to respond to it. And essentially, the best sales professionals are going for the no.
Yes.
The worst
But their
sales
objections.
professionals are going for the yes, which is, I'll do anything you ask me to do in order to get the sale.
And then they get in trouble.
And then they get in trouble. And then they're surprised. I'm not.
Yeah.
Saw that coming.
All right. So let's talk about COVID, after COVID, or kind of even some years before, with all technology. How is technology, Zoom, the internet, changing sales process, a long sales process, or a complicated sales process?
Well, there's a couple interesting things that, being in this business as long as I've seeing that what it takes to succeed is having an organized, defined process, teaching people the skills to execute that process, and then developing the self-discipline in those professionals to do what they need to do when they need to do it. That's what success takes. Now, it's what I'm about to say is, it's always bugged me, and it's still going on, that someone's selling technology to do robotic calls to set up a first appointment. Well, that's trying to sidestep what it really takes. And if, for example, if you have a $50,000 solution,
yep,
and if you sell 30 of those a year, you're doing $1.5 million volume, and you're very profitable for your company. Are you telling me you can't an appointment every day?
Yep.
And one good lead per week? No,
yep.
That's an incompetent salesperson. So I'm trying to replace incompetency, lack of process, lack of skill, lack of discipline, with a robotic phone dialer. And okay, so I get the appointment. Now what happens when my incompetent salesperson shows up for the appointment?
Kills the appointment.
It kills it.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting it's easy. I mean, it's a small percentage of our clients that have put in what was required for enormous success, and they've achieved it. Right. But it's not a secret. So I'm probably not helping with the answer here, but then there's goodness in a CRM system to be keeping track of customers, of appointments, and callbacks, follow-ups. There's all of that makes us more efficient. But that's not making me efficient is not replacing my skill, my process, my discipline. So there's two different types of technology maybe I'm talking about. And I always do the doctor test.
What is the doctor test?
The doctor test is if I'm teaching you something, is this what a doctor would do with their patient? And is this a question a doctor would ask? And if a patient comes in, for example, and says, I have a sore shoulder, I need some pain medicine. The doctor is, okay, let's take a look at how much motion do you have there? And the patient says, no, don't have time for that. Just need the prescription.
Yeah.
Well, the doctor's not going to do that. The doctor's not going to comply. The doctor has a process and a system, and they'll work with you within that system, but they won't vary from it. And we don't have that discipline in 90+% of salespeople, because, well, I was with the prospect talking with them last week, and the last year, 12% of the salespeople did 91% of their volume.
Oh, wow.
And they had an 18% margin. They hit all their numbers. And there were 170 salespeople in the organization. And there was somewhere around, it was above 40 that sold nothing during the course of the year. And they have a 60% turnover in that organization. It's just a machine.
But so that's what separates a bad sales agent or someone that doesn't get it.
Yeah.
So what's the most difficult thing to change from sales agents? Like, what's the hardest thing to change to a sales agent?
Well, human behavior, human change is all difficult. But if you think about, most companies don't have a process. Well, how can I change you from the randomness you're doing if I'm not introducing you to a well-defined right way? That change isn't going to happen. And how can I get you to ask better questions when I'm not giving you an example? Like the medical profession teaches doctors decision trees, how to diagnose.
Yep, of course.
And we teach this in the course, but I'll rush to the finish, that a doctor has about 3,800 questions that they could ask if everything was wrong with you when you came in for your annual physical. 3,800. 3,800. However, the average annual physical, the doctor asks less than 40 questions. And they have an accurate quality decision with 1%, by asking 1% of the potential questions. And so
because that happens because of a decision tree.
Yeah.
If they said, is this pain, do you have pain here? Yes, no. If you said no, then they eliminate 100 questions that could go.
Eliminate all that.
Right.
Yet, marketing gives us this huge list of questions and says, go out and ask these questions. And the salesperson really doesn't know, why am I asking this? What am I going to do with the answer?
Yeah.
Now, take that top 10% of salespeople. They've learned the decision tree by trial and error. No one's taught it to them.
Yeah.
And they recognize very quickly when they say this, I don't go down that area at all. So, to be encouraging, I'm saying a company could develop these decision trees, which we do with clients, and they can solve all of those efficiency issues. And now in the training and coaching process, I know you are following the right paths and asking the right questions, and you're ending up or I can coach you very early where you got off. But there's nothing of substance to coach to if I go back to the worst case, I'm hiring experienced salespeople and turning them loose.
Right.
It's a solvable problem, but it's hard.
Yes, it's pretty hard. Let me just close with, there's a lot of people, they are called sales agents, and they're order takers. They're expecting all the leads being provided by the company. But most importantly, that the lead is calling and ready to buy, right?
Yeah.
If the lead is getting a longer process or whatever, they just drop it. And there's some sales agents, they know how to manage them correctly. And most importantly, they're so good that they get referrals outside. They're all the time in the market. Like they're really out there being a sales agent and doing the work.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with the order takers, are the ones that if the client is not ready to buy, they just kind of drop them and don't really follow them?
See, now I go into the qualification process, and if we have this automated lead generation that just finds someone willing to talk, well, chances are they aren't going to talk. So I would want to, based on the solution, I would want to ask, what is the major indicator or symptom that tells you this client prospect is at risk in their performance without your solution? And
Okay.
I want 2 or 3 questions I can ask. Have you noticed any shortness of breath? That question leads to a whole area of cardiovascular issues.
So you train the sales agent on asking these questions and kind of getting a report, consistent report of what they're doing and the status of the client, so you know they're on top of the client.
Yeah, and they're very specific symptom-based questions, observational questions. And that could be with, well, it's based on the nature of your solution, but what would you expect would physically be happening in a customer's business without your solution? And that's what I should ask about. I'm not asking whether are you interested in bypass surgery? No, no one's interested in bypass surgery.
Of course not.
But have you had any shortness of breath? Oh, I do from time to time. Well, what sort of activity are you doing when you notice the shortness of breath? Well, I'm running in a marathon. That's normal.
Right.
You're not qualified.
Yeah. I just woke up. You're worried.
And that's the, so I'm kind of placing the blame on the company.
Yeah.
There are no bad salespeople.
There are some that are bad, but I get it. If the process is, but if the sales management is correct and the company does the process and everything, it's hard to have a bad sales agent.
Because if they were really good, they would find something to direct the salesperson to, and maybe have them be a customer service, or find another job at another company if they're really bad. But that's the deal.
To close the interview, let's close with some fun. Tell me a weird story in a sales process you've seen that it was like, oh my God moment of a sales agent doing something wrong or a process that went terribly bad.
Well, I recall a client that was, we teach that you should not be making presentations. You should diagnose before you prescribe.
Yep.
So he had a new salesperson that had been, learning the product and learning to do the presentation, and they were on a call together, and it was a company that sells these really big trucks for the mining industry in northern Minnesota. So they coached beforehand. He said, now we're not going to do the presentation. We're going to be asking a few questions. Yep, got it. No presentation. And he he got into the call, and the customer said, what makes your truck better than the others? Hey, I'm glad you asked that. And he went in right into the presentation, and then the customer said, well, okay, but it really still seems the same. No, there's also this. And the customer, well, I really don't want to hear about that anymore. And the salesperson said, no, you're going to hear about it because you don't understand why we're the best out there. And then the sales manager grabbed him by the shoulder and said, what a kidder. You are so funny. No, and he like he said, he dug his fingers into the guy's shoulder and got him to shut up. And
imagine the sales manager was not there. That would have been a disaster for the client.
That would have been security.
Yeah. By the way, so this came with another question. As a business owner or a sales manager, when you're doing a joint sales call, so you're kind of training and learning all that. When your sales agents start going through all the process and doing it right, and they just start destroying the sale.
Yeah.
You have two options: getting in and saving the sale, or waiting for the sales agent to destroy it. And then they're going to have a teachable moment and they're going to learn.
It's a tough decision.
It's a tough decision. Like, how do you balance that decision? And when you should come in and when you should let it destroy the sale?
Yeah. I'm going to suggest you're making a judgment of this. Is this individual coachable before all this happens? And if you think they're coachable, but they just gone off the rail here, you probably would step in. But it's this: what are they going to learn if I let them fail? I tend to want to let them fail because then they're more teachable.
Yeah, but then you lost the sale.
Then you lost the sale. So, am I taking them in on a sale I can't afford to lose? That's a bad coaching decision. And maybe it's a teaching moment, and I'll lead the call. I'll do the process. Watch, and then we'll talk after. So only one of our key thoughts is no joint sales calls.
No joint sales calls.
No. If I'm your manager,
yeah,
I'm here on the call with you. I'm here as a technical assistant.
Right.
And you call on me when you need my technical advice. But I'm not going to take over the sale. If this starts going down in flames, you're going with it.
So I don't say when they get to the call, they say, I'm here the sales manager, I'm training or whatever. You don't say that.
No, not unless you have to. I mean, yeah, we're not going to mislead anyone.
But I love the idea of saying, hey, I'm your technical person. If you need me to jump in, I'll be happy. But if you ask me technical or whatever.
Yeah. Now, another thing, if you know the customer, great sales manager I worked with in the past, he would take new salespeople to known customers.
Yeah.
Who would be in on the drill and would run the new salesperson through the grinder.
I would love to see one of those.
And he was a great manager. He produced a lot of really good salespeople, but that was part of his program. And the customer was a good friend. The customer, a dinner later, ball game, whatever. But the customer did one of these a month or something like that for
That's
him.
Cool. All right.
A lot of great stuff going on there.
I imagine in 40 years in sales, I imagine you have some big stories.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. So where can they find more about you or know more about you? If they want to follow you, what social media or how can they follow?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn at just Jeff Thull.
Okay.
At LinkedIn. And of course we have our website, Prime Resource Group, and a lot of info, and we're working with the Growth Institute, of course, on
you have an amazing master course at the Growth Institute.
Yeah.
Of how to really implement and do the process, to go through the process correctly. All right, Jeff, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. Learned a lot, had a lot of fun, and I know what not to do as a sales manager if I'm working with a client.
Alrighty. Yeah, I see that we've lost the sun here. I need to bring on artificial lights pretty soon.
Thank you. Hey, by the way,
Right.
that's a real background, or it's one of these.
This is a library in our house.
You know,
Yes,
very nice,
which
beautiful.
I've overtaken as an office.
Yeah. Now we all working from home now.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Daniel.
Bye.